During the weekend of May 19th through the 21st, 2017, Alien Covenant opened to $36.1 million, becoming the #1 movie at the U.S. box office. While it successfully managed to dethrone Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 from the #1 spot, the film's opening box office take was far from perfect. In its second weekend, Covenant grossed only $10.5 million, falling to #4 at the U.S. box office, behind the aforementioned Guardians sequel, as well as the new Pirates of the Caribbean film and Baywatch. Regardless of both praise and criticism weathered by Ridley Scott and his latest two additions to the Alien series, there was a time when he wasn't the only director expected to reinvigorate the franchise. Back in 2015, District 9 director Neill Blomkamp was attached to direct the 5th installment in the Alien series, which would be the 6th movie in the Alien mythos. In this video, we will examine what happened to Blomkamp's project. We will also cover the history of the Alien franchise after the failure of 1997's Alien Resurrection, then the numerous periods of development hell the series endured, and the future of the Alien franchise after Covenant. After the release of Alien Resurrection, the possibility of a 5th installment in the Alien franchise hardly seemed improbable. While the 4th film had many detractors and struggled at the American box office, it did better internationally, grossing over $161 million against a budget of $60 to $75 million. Considering Resurrection's financial success, the possibility of a 5th installment remained likely at the time. Tom Rothman, then president of 20th Century Fox, said, "We firmly expect to do another one. Joss Whedon will write it, and we expect to have Sigourney Weaver and Winona Ryder if they're up for it." Sigourney Weaver said that she was interested in a sequel, but said that she would only return to the series if she approved of the script. And that's where our story gets interesting. Joss Whedon's draft for Alien 5 was set on Earth and was reportedly titled Alien Revelation. According to Whedon, the studio talked about Alien Resurrection as a kind of placeholder. They said, "We want to do Earth or the big alien planet, but we're not convinced yet that this franchise has legs, so we want to do a smaller story. I don't think you can do that with Alien 5. I think the time of people running around in a tin can has passed. You have to work on a broader canvas. With Alien Resurrection, I used the first two movies as models, but with this one, I can promise you something new, something completely different from what's been seen before." Whedon's decision to set Alien 5 on Earth did not sit well with Weaver, who seemed to favor a movie set on the planetoid from the 1979 film. This creative disagreement would eventually lead Whedon to abandon Alien 5 in favor of more original projects, such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its spin-off Angel. Even with Joss Whedon's departure from the Alien series, the outlook for the franchise remained optimistic for the next few years. At various points in time, Ridley Scott and James Cameron were in talks to return to the series, either individually or as collaborators. In a 2002 interview with Latino Review, Scott indicated that he might be involved with a 5th Alien film. "I've been asked about Alien 5, and I said of course. We've started a script meeting. I've started it off, so I may as well close the door. If in fact this is meant to be the last one, I will decide in the next 5 weeks. I'm looking at Alien 5 for sure. Why not? Maybe." In 2003, Zaptoid.com reported what it claimed to be the plot lines for Aliens 5 and 6. According to the site, Alien 5 would have been set on Earth, despite actress Sigourney Weaver's aforementioned opposition to such a setting. The film would have centered around alien warrior dropships invading Earth and using the planet as their personal incubator. During the attack, the dropships would leave alien eggs around the humans. This sequence of events would eventually lead Ripley to realize that her dreams played a role in what's happening. She evacuates and confines herself to a cell, but inevitably, she will meet her nemesis face to face again. In this sequel, Ripley would join forces with the aliens as they invade other planets in the hopes of finding a way to destroy them once and for all. The accuracy of Zaptoid's reporting on the Alien sequel's plotlines is open for debate. In a 2002 interview with the Chicago Sun-Times, Scott sounded uninterested in the idea of aliens invading the Earth. Ironically, in that same interview, Scott outlined his vision for what would later become 2012's Prometheus. "I say we should go back to where the alien creatures were first found and explain how they were created. No one has ever explained why. I always figured that a battleship carrying biomechanical organisms that could be weapons was sent into space with some space jockey who didn't last long." 2003 was also the year Ian Nathan of The Times reported on the possibility of Ridley Scott and James Cameron working together on a 5th Alien movie. Cameron would write and produce the movie, while Scott would direct. According to Cameron, the two filmmakers were in violent agreement throughout much of the process, as they met over lunch to discuss their ideas. Nevertheless, their meetings yielded no tangible results, and Scott left the project. In spite of Scott's departure, Cameron continued to work on the story for Alien 5 with the help of another writer. It was around this time that Fox started floating the idea for Alien vs. Predator. The idea of a crossover between the Alien Predator franchises dates all the way back to 1989. Dark Horse Presents issue number 34 featured the beginning of a 3-part Alien vs. Predator story arc. The following year, Predator 2 would pay homage to the crossover near the end of the movie, in a scene where a xenomorph warrior skull is clearly visible in the Yautja mothership's trophy room. This sight gag, suggested by special effects artist John Rosengrant and Shane Mahan as a reference to the Dark Horse story, effectively opened the door to a cinematic crossover. The same comic book would go on to serve as the inspiration for the first iteration of an AVP movie, a 1991 spec screenplay by Peter Briggs titled Alien vs. Predator. While Briggs was successful in pitching his script to 20th Century Fox, development on the project was stalled by the release of Alien Resurrection, and it wasn't until 2002 when a prospective AVP movie once again attracted serious consideration. It was around this time that Paul W.S. Anderson, director of Mortal Kombat, Event Horizon, and Resident Evil, pitched his idea for an Alien vs. Predator movie to Fox producer John Davis. Pleased with Anderson's concept for the film, which he compared to Steven Spielberg's Jaws, Davis gave Anderson permission to move ahead with the project. James Cameron, however, was unhappy with this decision. In an interview with Ain't It Cool News, he said, "Fox came back to me and said, we've got this really good script for Alien vs. Predator, and I got pretty upset. I said, you do that, you're going to kill the validity of the franchise in my mind. Because to me, that was Frankenstein meets the werewolf. It was Universal just taking their assets and starting to play them off against each other, so I stopped working on my Alien 5 script." On August 13, 2004, Alien vs. Predator was released in the United States, where it grossed north of $38 million on its opening weekend. Although the movie was met with commercial success, the film received negative reviews from critics. A sequel, Alien vs. Predator Requiem, was released 3 years later on December 25, 2007. Directed by Colin and Greg Strauss, founders of the special effects company Hydraulics, the film was both a critical and commercial failure. While James Cameron admitted to enjoying the first Alien vs. Predator movie, he would ultimately refuse to return to the franchise, arguing that Alien was no longer his asset, but Fox's. In addition, Cameron cited Fox's meddling with Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes as an example of the studio's interventionist nature. As many of our viewers are aware, this was a recurring issue during executive Tom Rothman's tenure at the company. And so once again, Alien 5 entered development hell. As previously mentioned, Ridley Scott had been hoping to make a prequel to the Alien franchise since 2002. He was particularly interested in creating a prequel that would detail the creature's origins. Scott's wish came true in July 2009 when he was contracted to direct an Alien prequel with a script by John Spates, who had pitched his own idea for an Alien prequel to Fox. The script was known by a variety of names, including Alien Engineers, Alien Origin, Alien Genesis, and Alien LV-426, all of which would imply that the film would serve as a prequel. The movie featured a new design for the xenomorph, dubbed the Holloway Alien, named after its victim, which would serve as the basis for both the Deacon that appears in the final scene of Prometheus and the Neomorphs in Alien Covenant. However, in July 2010, law scribe Damon Lindelof was hired to rework Spates' screenplay, which significantly changed many elements of the story. Among the plot elements Lindelof removed from Spates' screenplay were the following: several scenes involving the xenomorphs, a sequence where the parasite that infects Elizabeth Shaw, played by Noomi Rapace, is extracted and expelled from the medpod, even as she remains trapped inside the pod, a lengthier sequence where Shaw drifts in and out of consciousness as she's recovering within the pod, all the while the parasite is growing aboard the ship and killing crew members. A scene where Charlie Holloway, played by Logan Marshall Green, removes his helmet, is attacked by a facehugger, and fades into unconsciousness. He later wakes up, reunites with Shaw, and makes love with her before finally bursting. A more complex character arc for Michael Fassbender's character David. He becomes fascinated by the engineers, whom he regards as his peers, and grows disenchanted with his human compatriots. In Spates' draft, David would be the one to infect Shaw with the facehugger, as he ties her up and tortures her with the parasite. And finally, a more open-ended conclusion in which David and Shaw find themselves trapped on the planetoid and realize they'll have to cooperate if they want to continue living. Lindelof submitted his draft of the script in October of 2010. The script was titled Paradise, a clear allusion to John Milton's 17th century epic poem Paradise Lost, which chronicles the fall of man. Scott was supportive of the allusion, but felt that the name would give away the nature of the movie's story. 3 months later, at the behest of Fox CEO Tom Rothman, the title of the project was changed from Paradise to Prometheus, the name of the ship that the ill-fated crew would use to reach the engineer-occupied planet. Throughout the production, the movie's connection to the Alien franchise was kept ambiguous, in the hopes of capitalizing upon audience interest and developing a mythology distinct from the earlier installments. Prometheus was finally released in June of 2012. It grossed over $51 million during its opening weekend, trailing behind Madagascar 3's gross of $60 million. Prometheus opened to generally positive reviews from critics who praised Michael Fassbender's performance and the movie's visuals, even as they were less receptive of its writing and inability to sufficiently explore complex themes. The film went on to become a financial success, grossing $403 million in total and reigniting the interest in the continuation of the Alien franchise. Nevertheless, the film was considered relatively disappointing, and was even speculated to have played a factor in Rothman's resignation from Fox. Following the film's release, Scott repeatedly noted that he always saw Prometheus as an Alien prequel, even though he spent much of the film's promotion de-emphasizing the connection between the two films. The director noted that his plan for a sequel, further distancing the story of Elizabeth Shaw and David from the franchise's xenomorph-based mythology. and instead following the two on their journey to find answers from the engineers. Meanwhile, a prospective third film would conclude their story and tie it back to the original Alien. Scott later would go on to add that he felt a fourth movie would be needed to tell a complete story. But even though Prometheus rekindled interest in the franchise that he created, Scott directed his creative energies toward other projects. As a result, talk of another Prometheus movie faded away, even though a script for the project was written by Jack Palahniuk and revised by Michael Green. Scott instead opted to direct The Counselor, Exodus, Gods and Kings, and The Martian during the 3 years after the release of Prometheus. While Scott was developing these other films, plans for a continuation of the main Alien story with Ellen Ripley finally returned to the forefront. In a 2014 interview with The Guardian, Sigourney Weaver expressed interest in reprising the role of Ellen Ripley. In that interview, she described the Alien storyline as unresolved, saying that, "As a former English major, I feel like, I wish we'd finish this story. It feels incomplete to me. I wish it didn't, but it does. We left it hanging, and there's a way to finish this story that I think would be satisfying to me and the many fans." Weaver's wishes lead us to the events of January 2015. It was on New Year's Day that District 9 director Neill Blomkamp posted concept art from what appeared to be his pitch for an Alien movie on Instagram. Among the since-deleted artwork were images of a xenomorph queen, Ripley wearing the space jockey helmet, the interior of the Weyland-Yutani headquarters, and a clearly disfigured Corporal Hicks. On Twitter, Blomkamp wrote the following: "Was working on this, don't think I am anymore, love it though, woulda rocked. Was a mental stroll into the world Ridley Scott created." Blomkamp added, "P.S. This has nothing to do with the studio. I just feel like I might do something else instead, in which case why not show some work? They didn't even really know I was working on it, ha." The South African-Canadian director Neill Blomkamp first rose to international prominence in 2009 with the release of his critically acclaimed science fiction film District 9. Blomkamp followed up the success of District 9 with Elysium in 2013, a film made on a $115 million budget. While the film received a more lukewarm reception than his previous feature, garnering a 67% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, it went on to generate over $286 million at the global box office. March 2015 saw the release of Blomkamp's third feature, Chappie, which earned him his most negative reception yet. Chappie garnered a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average rating of 4.9 out of 10, as well as a Metascore of 41 out of 100. Chappie went on to become his lowest grossing film yet, earning $102 million against a modest budget of $49 million. Throughout 2015, news of a Blomkamp-directed Alien 5 kept coming and going. In a February interview with MTV News, Sigourney Weaver stated that she and Blomkamp had discussed the possibility of an Alien sequel the day they had begun working together on Chappie. Weaver, however, wouldn't say anything about the plot Blomkamp had in mind for the film. 2 days after that exchange, on February 18th, Blomkamp confirmed that he would be directing an Alien film. On Twitter, he wrote, "So I think it's officially my next film, #Alien." According to insiders, Blomkamp's movie would take place years after the events of Prometheus, and would be produced independently of Ridley Scott's then unnamed Prometheus sequel. Nevertheless, Scott would still produce Blomkamp's movie. At this point, Sigourney Weaver had yet to be attached to the sequel, even though she had previously indicated she'd be on board with working alongside Blomkamp. In March, Bloody Disgusting broke the scoop that Neill Blomkamp was planning multiple Alien films. It was around this time that rumors began to circulate that Blomkamp's film would effectively ignore the events of Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. However, Blomkamp denied these rumors, arguing that he simply wanted his film to be connected more to the first two movies than the latter two. In June, Blomkamp confirmed that his film would not overlap with Ridley Scott's Prometheus sequel. Blomkamp said, "I changed the one thing that Scott felt was bumping Prometheus a little bit. One thing that makes me feel good about it is that Ridley is producing it. He likes the idea of what I want to make. I set the title I wanted to Ridley. It's kind of quite bold, but it gives away too much if I say the title. But in the event that it doesn't work, I'm dead in the water." In August 2015, Bloody Disgusting reported that Neill Blomkamp's Alien film may have either entered a period of development hell or had been cancelled altogether. According to the site, Chappie's poor financial performance and negative reviews might have given Fox pause about moving forward with the project. While these reports were purely speculative, they do hold some water. In an earlier interview, Bean indicated that while he had talked to Blomkamp about Alien 5, he had not been provided with a script or offered a role in the film. Coupled with Fox's failure to provide a release date for Blomkamp's film, and the fact that Blomkamp had no other projects in development at the time, the prognosis did not appear good. A few days after its initial report, Bloody Disgusting broke the scoop that Blomkamp's Alien project had not entered development hell, but rather it was being delayed until Prometheus 2 began production. According to writer Jonathan Barkin's source, Alien 5 is still very much in the works, as Fox remains hot on the idea. Blomkamp continues to work on the script, only a 10-page outline existed previously, and refine the tale he is telling. Ridley Scott is still producing, but has insisted on Prometheus 2 being made first. Allegedly, the plan was to have Prometheus 2 ready for a 2017 release. Alien 5 would have then begun production in 2017 and would have been released in 2018. This would have also given Sigourney Weaver enough time to prepare for the role in light of her commitment to the 4 planned Avatar sequels. Bloody Disgusting source went on to add that the rumors of Alien 5 disregarding the events of Aliens 3 and Alien Resurrection weren't necessarily true, even though star Michael Biehn insisted otherwise. 2 months later, on October 29th, Blomkamp confirmed that his Alien project would be put on hold pending the outcome of Prometheus 2, then titled Alien: Paradise Lost. Alien is kind of holding/pending Prometheus 2, so I shall be working on other things, as much as I love the Xeno and Lieutenant Ripley. In the meantime, Scott noted that he had revised his Prometheus sequel with writers John Logan and Dante Harper to feature the Xenomorph prominently, in spite of his initial plan to put even more focus on the engineers. In addition, he noted that the film would feature a reference that connected the new story to Ellen Ripley's prior fateful encounter on LV-426. It was previously rumored that the movie's protagonist, Lieutenant Daniels, would be revealed to be Ripley's mother or relative, although these rumors were later denied and no such reference appears in the finished film. In April 2016, Sigourney Weaver stated that she thought the film was still in development, but it would not start production until Ridley Scott completed his work on his Prometheus sequel. According to Weaver, Ridley asked Neill not to make our Alien until after Prometheus 2. He, Ridley, wanted his movie to shoot and be released first. But it's an amazing script and Neill and I are really excited about doing it. We're doing other things until we can get going on that. I'd be really surprised if we didn't do it, because it's such a great script and we love working together. This led to the events of the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con. It was there at the Aliens 30th anniversary panel that both Sigourney Weaver and James Cameron spoke highly of Blomkamp's Alien script. Weaver called it incredible and said it gives fans everything they're looking for, while Cameron called the script very strong and said it works gangbusters. We remain uncertain as to whether the duo were referring to the filmmaker's 10-page outline for the film, or if Blomkamp had composed a full-fledged script at the time. In an interview with Variety that December, Weaver once again referenced a script. I hope that Neill Blomkamp and I will eventually get back to it. He's written such a wonderful script. I look forward to finishing Ripley's story. This suggests two things: that Blomkamp had written a full-fledged script by that time, and the intention was to wrap up Ellen Ripley's story in that film. The following month, Blomkamp indicated that he was pessimistic about the possibility of his Alien project ever being realized. On January 17, Twitter user @JamesSportella asked the director, "What are the chances of the Alien project happening?" 4 days later, Blomkamp responded with a single word: slim. Several months later, Ridley Scott corroborated Blomkamp's claim, although he was much more unambiguous in asserting that Blomkamp's vision would never be realized. On May 1st, 2017, in an interview with the French film website Allociné, Ridley Scott expressed doubts about the possibility of Neill Blomkamp's Alien coming to fruition. According to Scott, who was supposed to produce the movie, there was never a script. There was an idea which was evolved on, I think, a 10-page pitch, and I was meant to be the producer on that, and it didn't evolve. Fox decided they didn't want to do it, so that was it. This runs counter to what both Sigourney Weaver and James Cameron had said during the previous year's Comic-Con, as both had suggested that a well-written script had been composed by Blomkamp. A week later, in a May 9th interview with IGN UK, Scott revealed that Blomkamp's film would have been titled Alien Awakening. In an earlier interview, Scott had stated that Awakening would be the title of the next film in his Prometheus trilogy. He was quoted as saying, "It will go Prometheus, Awakening, Covenant." This seems to suggest Scott's Awakening would be set between the events of Prometheus and Covenant, even though it would be released after those two films. Then on June 3rd, in an interview with The Verge, Blomkamp said, "I think it's totally dead, yes. That would be an accurate assumption at this point. It's sad, I spent a long time working on that, and I feel like it was pretty awesome. But politically, the way it's gone now and the way that it all is, it's just not going to live." Blomkamp then clarified, "Ridley Scott was one of my idols growing up. He's so talented, and he's made this film that really set me off in a direction. I just wanted to be as respectful and not go stamping around in this world that he created. I think that if circumstances were different, and I didn't feel like I was getting too close to something that he obviously feels a massive personal connection to, that things may have played out differently, but I did want to be as respectful as possible." In the aforementioned interview with IGN UK, Scott had compared the idea of sharing the Alien franchise with Blomkamp to shooting your big toe off. His comments indicate a sense of apprehension towards the possibility of concurrently developing two Alien storylines, one set in the Prometheus timeline and the other set after the events of Alien Resurrection, or possibly a new story following Aliens. This leads us to believe there may have been some behind-the-scenes creative differences between Scott and Blomkamp. But to what extent did the two disagree if they did? And what exactly led Fox to abandon Blomkamp's project? Based on the information we have gathered, we can't offer any definitive answers. However, it bears remembering that development on Neill Blomkamp's Alien became scant soon after Chappie opened to a mostly negative reception. By contrast, Ridley Scott's The Martian generated a much more positive response 7 months later and went on to garner a Best Picture nomination. A November 2015 interview with Ridley Scott might also provide some additional insights. In a press conference in Sydney, Australia, Scott revealed his next film, Alien Covenant, was the start of a new trilogy that would tie in directly to 1979's Alien. Scott said, "It's a very complex story. It's an evolution of what I did with Prometheus 1. Prometheus 1 was born out of my frustration that on Alien 1 in 1979, I only did one as I don't normally do sequels. I was amazed that in the 3 that followed, that no one asked the question, why the alien, who made it, and why? Very basic questions. So I came up with the notion of Prometheus 1, which starts to indicate who might have made it and where it came from. So now I'm going to the next one, which is the next evolution directly connected with the first one, which was this Shaw when he replaced Michael Fassbender in 2 pieces, and we'll kind of pick it up from there and it will evolve. When that's finished, there'll be another one, and then another one, which will gradually drive into the back entrance of the film in 1979. So in other words, why was this space jockey there and why did he have an alien inside of him? And those questions will be answered. Scott also joked, Star Wars will be a juggernaut. Why do you think I'm doing sequels? Clearly, the director who had been previously uninterested in continuing his alien mythology was now more enthusiastic about carrying on with the franchise. In many respects, this desire to craft a new trilogy was motivated by the fact that Damon Lindelof had removed a key plot element that was directly tied Prometheus to Alien. With Ridley Scott back at the helm, creative differences seemed much more inevitable, as the veteran filmmakers saw exclusive control over the future of the franchise. Blomkamp's interview with The Verge seemed to confirm that Scott's attachment to Alien impeded Blomkamp's ability to bring his own vision to the series. Few details surrounding Blomkamp's vision for his Alien project exist, as neither the script nor the 10-page outline that Blomkamp wrote are publicly available. However, the existence of a completed screenplay seems likely, given the statements made by Sigourney Weaver and James Cameron at the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con. In a November 2015 interview with Icons of Fright, Michael Biehn speculated that Blomkamp's film would revolve around Rebecca Newt Jordan, the young girl and sole survivor of the colony on LV-426 he and Ripley rescued in Aliens. According to Biehn, they're planning on bringing me and Newt back, and at this point, Newt will be around 27 years old. I know that every actress in Hollywood is going to want to play this one. It's really a passing of the torch between Sigourney Weaver and this younger actress who would play Newt. Blomkamp has since chosen to start work on another project, a series of science fiction, fantasy, and horror short films under the banner of Oat Studios. Since Ridley Scott is back at the reins of the Alien franchise while Blomkamp is working on his own short films, what does this mean for the Alien series? Prior to the release of Covenant, Ridley Scott stated that a script for the sequel was already in development. Scott also said that the sequel will begin filming within the next 14 months. Nevertheless, Covenant's middling performance at the box office, even with a smaller budget than Prometheus, calls the future of Scott's prequel franchise into question. A 71% drop in box office revenue in its second weekend didn't help matters. Neither did competition from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Pirates of the Caribbean 5, and a massively overperforming Wonder Woman. By the end of its run, Alien Covenant had grossed about $75 million domestically and just above $230 million worldwide. Adjusted for inflation, only Alien vs. Predator Requiem grossed less. It will have to rely on home media sales and ancillary revenue to break even, let alone make a profit. While the movie is unlikely to incur Fox any losses to speak of, the next installment in the series will need to adopt a smaller budget and a different approach if it hopes to do well financially. Considering that Covenant was met with a merely lukewarm response from general audiences, a re-evaluation of what works for the series will need to be made to make sure that future films in the series are hits. And if the rumors are true, Fox is doing just that. On July 21, 2017, The Hollywood Reporter published an article examining the current state of multiple film franchises. When addressing Alien Covenant, authors Rebecca Ford, Boris Kitt, and Carolyn Giordina noted that Fox is ostensibly reassessing its plans for future installments following Covenant's underperformance. Furthermore, a recent discussion on Collider News suggests that following the completion of the Alien prequel series, that the franchise will delve deeper into the timeline and tell new stories unrelated to David's story arc. From the sound of things now, it appears that the prequels are going to be put on hold in favor of some of the ideas that Fox wanted to pursue later. However, it remains unclear if the Prometheus story arc will ever receive a proper conclusion. The Collider discussion further suggests that the next movie in the franchise will have to be made on a much lower budget, lower than either Prometheus or Covenant. This suggests that the next sequel will likely cut back on the visual spectacle of exploring alien worlds and will instead focus on the franchise's sci-fi horror elements. This would effectively serve as a soft reboot to the Alien movie series without undoing any of the franchise's established history. If Fox opts to set another Alien movie further in the timeline, then there's a possibility that Blomkamp's original concept for his Aliens follow-up could be used as a template, even if he may not be involved with the production. Considering that many fans view Ellen Ripley and not the Xenomorph as the real face of the franchise, perhaps a sequel featuring Sigourney Weaver might be what Fox needs in order to get their movie series back on track. Be sure to let us know what you think of Alien Covenant, as well as the cancellation of Neill Blomkamp's Alien 5 in the comments. We'll be sure to keep you up to date on any new developments in this saga here at Midnight's Edge.